Next application is One Pond Lane LLC, One Pond Lane. The applicant has requested that there be an adjournment until January 22nd, 2018. The motion would be to approve applicant's request to adjourn until January 22nd.
Motion to approve the application of One Pond Lane LLC to adjourn until January 22nd. Request to adjourn until January 22nd, 2018.
The motion was by Susan. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Jeff. All in favor? Aye. Curtis? Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
All ayes.
Okay.
Next application, please, which would be Susan Smith at 134 Murray Lane. Certificate of appropriateness for demo of existing existing structure with attached.
I don't, yeah, do we have any objection to this?
Good evening, members of the board. Brian DeSessa, Adam Miller Group, attorney for the applicant here. We're seeking permission to demolish the house located at 134 Murray Lane. There was a house was demoed. Approval was received by this board in '93 for a previous house. New house was built in '95 in C of O. And so as part of a contract condition, we're here to seek permission to demo the existing house that was constructed and finished in '95.
Okay.
Well, we obviously know there's no historical
Yes.
significance behind this.
So it's
Therefore, and there's no report that's necessary normally. Typically, when there's a home within the historic district, we ask our historic consultant to do a review. There's no need to do so. Is there any public comment from the application? Certificate of appropriateness to demolish, to demo, 134 Murray. Christine, any comments?
No.
Susan?
No, I think it's fine.
Jeff?
No comment.
And therefore, the motion would be to approve the certificate of appropriateness to demo 134 Mary Lane.
Make a motion that we approve the demolition of 134, what's the address?
Murray Lane. Motion was by
134 Murray Lane.
the motion was by Christine. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Susan. All in favor. Christine?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well.
very good. Thank you. Good evening.
Next application, please.
Next application is David Hoolan on Little Plains Road.
Is this the
No, I can't.
Christian Science Church? Yes.
I just stopped for a second. I'm sorry there was a vote. It's an historic district, and even though it's a simple application, we do have to put the application or the ruling in writing. So I just want to, for purposes of process, motion to reopen. I just need a motion to reopen.
Motion to reopen
Motion.
134 Murray Lane.
By Susan, is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Christina. Christina?
Okay, so I make,
Is it aye? Yes?
I said aye.
Susan?
Aye.
And Jeff? And I'm an aye as well. So what we have to do is close the application for written decision, which will be prepared, or I just want you to know and understand, the parcels located in the historic district, I know it's a simple application. However, procedurally, we still have to have our decisions in writing, okay?
absolutely.
So we'll close it for written decision, and we'll have it prepared at the next meeting.
Understood.
So you ran out of here before we could do that.
Sorry.
I don't want you to change your mind.
No problem. So therefore, the motion would be to close the application for written decision by
I
council.
make a motion that we close the application of Susan Smith at 134 Murray Lane for written decision by our council.
Motion by Christina. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Susan.
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Curtis is that? Yeah, aye too. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Now the next application.
Okay, next application is David Hoolan at 81 Little Plains Road.
Right. Hi, my name is Matthew Korn. I'm with Harrison Design, 1047 Old Northern Boulevard in Roslyn. I'm here with Mr. Hoolan, David Hoolan. His wife couldn't attend. I'm also here with Chris Stoddard from my office and Mark McAteer from the Law Group. We'll present tonight to you the new proposed house, request for a demolition of an existing house within a historic district, and review the landscape plans that include an accessory garage and a pool. From Good Housekeeping, I think we needed the affidavits. Hi. Thank you. There's an affidavit of posting and an affidavit of mailing as well.
Just so that we're clear, because the agenda does not reflect the request for the request first for demo. There's an existing structure that you're requesting, so therefore it's in the historic district. It's a certificate of appropriateness to tear down the existing structure.
Yes.
Zach, have you determined that any portion of that or any improvements?
to see.
Do you know the age of the structures that are being proposed?
It's approximately 1971, and I was told by Inspector Tin that I think you had reviewed it and didn't think it was a worthy house to put on a list of houses to be preserved.
I hope
That's
that
what he
was more
said to
than
me.
6 months ago.
Yeah. It's the
My mind
Christian
is,
Science.
my memory is strained.
Okay, we're reviewing the application
Yeah.
first, but I just want some clarification on
Is there a
structures that are being
picture of it
torn
in the
down.
file?
I have pictures.
Take a quick gander.
Should I put it out here so everyone can?
Yeah,
Yes, good. That's
This?
good.
Okay.
Fine.
So you would see demonstrated on the lower portion of this board, the 4 elevations of the existing structure.
Of course, this is the structure that became a church.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let the record reflect there are not contributing structures within the historic district.
It used to be a church.
Yes.
Proceed.
Okay, so as far as the structure, it's on a relatively small piece of property. It's on a corner lot. It's mixed within a beautiful array of homes, both on the secondary street and the primary street. We have photographs of all the adjacent homes on the other side of the board. We're looking to demolish this existing structure, which is really a one-story cape with a block foundation. It's not in really wonderful shape. The foundation is somewhat in disrepair. It has some serious cracks to it, and we're looking to replace it with a 2-story structure. If I might be going to just turn this around and make a presentation this way. Every aspect of this plan that we're going to propose to you tonight, both the site plan and the house comply with all zoning aspects. They comply with lot coverage, square footage, FAR, or gross floor area, with all the sky exposure planes, with all setbacks to accessory structures as well. Just an overall idea of what we're trying to accomplish is that on a corner site, and by the way, we're really happy to be doing work in the village, because we love villages that are organically grown, where it's not one house that looks like the next house, and we love the fact that it becomes really more of a fabric, than a monotonous row of houses. So we're really excited to work in the village. We do a lot of work in historic villages. We are members of the ICAA. We are also members of Historic Trust, and we're very sensitive to creating architecture that reflects that. So on a corner lot, we try to make all the facades of any of our proposed buildings interesting, but more specifically on a corner lot, we really try to do that. The primary elevation that goes towards Little Plains is the main structure has a simple hip roof, complies with sky exposure and height, and the simple hip roof is articulated with a gambrel that brings it down to scale. So if you look at the front facade, you'll notice that this gambrel brings it down to human scale. It brings the roof lines down to a midline band. Sometimes with houses, we forget to create a scale that relates to human scale. It also allows someone to say, okay, this is the main entry, and it draws you towards this main entry with a small little gable that's held up by brackets instead of big columns. So we're trying to be less is more in this attempt. The windows are classic double hungs, 2 over 2. You can see it in a lot of the older homes in the area. It's articulated with simple molding, flat stock with a historic sill. There's some bracketry holding up the upper roof, just as something as to create an interesting shadow line. And the overhang is actually a little bit more than you standard. I think it's an 18-inch overhang. Just to articulate some of the more interesting aspects of the house, there's a midline band that wraps around the entire house, which I think ties it all together. It sort of demonstrates this midline band that runs through here. It demonstrates the difference between the first and second floor with a little shingle flare out that you see on all corners. It also ties back into this gambrel. And if you look at the other elevations of the house, you'll see it ties in to elements in the back of the house as well. So it's a one unifying piece of the vocabulary of the house that really makes it all work together. In this facade, these larger windows are part of a stair. So when you come into the house, there's a turnback stair that you are engaged with upon entry, and this provides a lot of natural light to the house. This triple window off to the left of the main entry is the kitchen sink. So what we've done there is we've actually packed out the window to create sort of a mini bay, and that's articulated and held up with small little brackets. Something like this. This is a 5-pound bracket that would be cut. That would only project out around 7 inches, which is this element over here. In your package, I think you might have this, or if you don't, I'd like to hand it out to you as an exhibit, is the exterior finish schedule. Can I have just one of those? I'm going to myself. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sir, would you like one?
Just a quick question. When you went to the building department and you got a checklist, did they refer you to also provide reduced size plans for us so that each member would have the opportunity to independently look at it during the process?
Yes, they did, and I thought we handed it in, but maybe I was remiss.
It's kind of
Sorry.
difficult to spread out.
I know.
Just makes life a lot easier, but it's,
Okay, go ahead.
Some boards are actually doing it online, so everyone comes with a little tablet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
they fairly clear. I see. I guess we can move this.
In addition to that package, I just want to just give you, you'll see in the plans, there's a garage in the back. It's a garage and also a storage area. Not a storage area. It's a storage area within the garage, but there's a 5-foot. Let me give you. The garage also incorporates the pool equipment within the basement of a portion of the garage. So when you come into the garage through the garage doors, which are these carriage-style garage doors, I'm going to put it like this, okay? This is a small garage. When you come in down the driveway towards the garage, these are carriage-style garage doors that really open up overhead, and this is where one car would be stored. The second portion of this cabana is a storage for kayaks and miscellaneous gardening. Mr. Hoolin's an avid gardener. And under this section over here, there's a 5-foot crawl space basement that will house all the pool equipment. So none of the proposed pool equipment will be out in the landscape. Any of the noise generated from the pool equipment will all be contained within this little crawl space basement area. It will obviously have a floor drain, and it complies once again to required accessory size and height. Going over the finish schedule that I gave you, we're planning on doing a wood roof, Alaskan yellow, taper sawn. The walls are going to be pre-dipped red cedar shingle, gray. I do have samples of all this. All the trim is going to be done in AZAC, which is a plastic wood that best simulates wood but doesn't rot. It's going to be painted white. The windows are going to be clad double-hung windows, simulated divided light, historic sills, and everything else is shown here. There's a small amount of brick that's on the bottom of the house. It's just to highlight the foundation, and it's supposed to be reminiscent of an old colonial that has some brick. It's going to be done with a thin brick that's put right over the foundation, and it's going to have real, like a gray mortar with a grapevine joint. So I think it's very elegant to have just these little smattering of brick, just to, instead of showing exposed foundation, I think this is much more of an elegant, more traditional way of expressing the foundation, and it's used very sparingly. It's going to be the risers on the stairs going up to the front door, and the actual platform is going to be done out of bluestone. With that, I'd like to introduce, unless you have questions for me, Mark McAteer, who'll go over the site plan and landscaping.
For site plan, a couple of things about the architectural elements. We discussed first the rear deck. This seems to be a rear accessible deck.
You mean second floor?
Second floor.
Okay, yes.
First, the material that's being used for that enclosure. And we typically have challenges about with second-story decks, especially in areas where lots are smaller and they're limited, because it creates issues with
Privacy?
privacy.
Yeah, we're sensitive to that as well.
Okay.
Can you excuse me for 1 second?
What is this material?
I'm just asked the question.
And they gave us this thing. Oh, that's just the finishes. Is it?
So you just, okay,
Where'd it go? Oh, to get another board?
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
I just talked to my client. He says absolutely not. He wants to. No, he said that he would. He said he would remove the second floor deck and just make it a simple roof structure, a subservient element. Like if you look at the front elevation of this house, you'll see that this one-story element is subservient to the main massing of the house. Similarly, in the back, we'll just do a hip roof over it. We understand the.
So you're removing the,
We're leaving it as a covered porch, but not having a second-story accessibility.
okay.
Just a roof. So in other words, that proposed deck will become the roof of the first floor.
And would it have any railing on it or anything?
No railing.
No railing, no anything.
No railing, no, we're going to change
Here.
the doors, instead of doors in the master bedroom, we're going to change it to windows.
Excellent, okay. Secondly, I know everyone is going to talk about that front window. I know it's
In a
a window for...
positive way, or?
No.
I know its functionality, but unfortunately, we're an aesthetic board,
Who
so...
is that architect?
I'm sorry?
They can say, who is that architect?
We're not going to get that far.
Yeah, but I understand why. Yeah,
Which
and
window are we talking about? This window or this
The
window?
long
The
ones.
long one,
The
yes.
long one. The big long
And
ones.
one
should
that
be
starts
gambrel.
at grade and goes up and continues to go up. And I understand that it's the stairway and the purpose is its functionality, but from an aesthetic standpoint, it's drawing from what could be, quite frankly, a very pleasing design from, a more simple and pleasing design. I know many board members will probably have the same comments. I think that portion of it, you missed the mark a tad bit, and there should be a better way to get the type of light and type of true light that you're looking for and incorporate it into what I think is an overall pleasing design.
Well, I do study a lot of the older homes, McKim, and White, and a lot of the old shingle style. And the stairway is always the one element that you could actually be expressive with glazing. I totally understand where you're coming from as far as size is concerned. We could minimize the upper window to make it like one of these two double hungs similar to that, but then there would be a big gap in here at the landing. So we could lower a window and put two double hungs a little lower, but I think that this has a
Why
certain...
don't you just, can you take, if you put your finger there and you have two double hungs
Yes.
with a space, I might be able to handle that. I think that the long window is offensive to me in some way.
And then the low
And the
windows
low
too.
window is too.
Well, the low-
I think you have to reconfigure.
Yeah, what I tell people, sometimes when you look at these one-dimensional drawings, it's hard to really grasp what we're getting at.
Well, but it's right over the brick.
Well,
That's low.
Yeah, let me give you my spin on it, because it's my little spin. Is that this is actually windows to the landing going to the basement, so it's giving natural light to the basement. And usually, this is an artist's rendering of what the foundation plantings could be. And you could talk to Mark, but if we put plantings in front of this, so this is not really seen from the street, it will allow natural light to get into a landing. But if you really take offense to it, I think it's something that he could lose, but it is...
Everything's balanced.
It's giving up a...
And what understand something, we're looking at a one-dimensional view. Everything's within balance. So when we look at the front facade and we see basically a grade window in the historic district, and you're going to get people discussing about the fabric of the community and what should and should not be. I just think right now you have to, as an architect or as someone presenting before this board, be able to put forward something that's balanced and something visually we can look at to make a determination.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I might ask for an adjournment to come up with some different schemes to present it to you.
That would be great.
This way you can give me input on the house, and then I can explore these possibilities, submit it 2 weeks prior to next meeting, and this way you could have a chance to digest it.
Excellent.
So do we have other concerns?
Yeah.
But let's, well, I'm just going to go each one.
My input on the window, same concern, that it draws the eye. It makes the house look a lot larger than it might otherwise be in an area that is surrounded, yes, there's some large Victorians directly across the street, and there's some newer houses that are probably a bit massive for the property, but I think that window accentuates how big the house is in what's really Burnett Street, and the houses near it are relatively modest lots. Even you said it's a small lot, so this window doesn't do justice. And so my thought was, but it may not work interiorly, you have that bay window or something that looks like a bay window, if that's carried over, if Susan was saying and Curtis was saying, if you take the top two windows and carry those over, the fact that you want to light up the stairway is fine and understood, but again, as Curtis has always said, this board looks at the outside, and right now the outside isn't balanced.
Susan, anything further?
No, I think that,
The problem is that by putting those two windows in that place, you've kind of advertised that the house is being designed from the inside out rather than the outside balancing. So,
I'm sensitive to everything you say, but as an
I think
architect...
he gets it.
Yeah, but as an architect, a lot of times the windows are very descriptive of what's happening. You'll often see windows that step up on a side elevation of a house.
not that bad.
It usually describes what's happening behind it. So we try to do both, like we try to do the outside. I'm sensitive to that. We'll explore the possibility of shrinking it and keeping it down to scale, maybe adding 2 double hungs on it only, or maybe doing panels. Whatever works, I think we'll get it, and I understand what you're saying.
Okay, I think, Maria, this enclosure back here, what is that? You're showing here, this seems to be a...
Are you on the rear elevation?
We're looking at the front elevation.
Front elevation. Left side.
got a metal roof.
Left side facing.
Oh, if you look...
So that's your roof, that's your roof line,
Yes,
correct?
do you have a plan that you could look at, first floor
Yes.
plan? You'll see that's a mudroom and a powder room.
So,
And we're leaving it as a one-story roof. If you don't like the raised metal seam roof, we gladly will
Just
go
wanted
to a wood
information on the
roof.
lead roof.
Yes.
so it's a lead roof, copper roof?
It's a copper, lead-coated copper roof.
You know, I
and
was-
is that on the bay window too?
Well, actually, on our rendering, that colored rendering, it shows as a wood roof.
That's why it doesn't
Because
reflect
from the standpoint of keeping the house on budget, I think we're going to stay with the wood roof. I'm sorry to
Thank you.
confuse you.
There's no thing, what you're presenting, so you're going to
Changing
also be
that, too.
changing the plans to reflect it will be a wood roof,
That's
correct?
correct.
All right.
And Chris is taking notes. I'm not just saying yes.
Anything further, board? You have more of your presentation?
Yes, Mark McAteer would like to present.
No, I think you look at the rendering is because you have layers of them.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mark McAteer with the Laurel Group. I have a landscape plan for you. As Mr. Korn mentioned, it is a corner lot. We've got an existing curb cut on Burnett Street, and we're proposing a new curb cut to come off of Little Plains Road. A small parking spur that will allow people to access the front door, that's the front elevation, as well as access all the way to the back to the detached garage. The planting is deer resistant and fairly typical planting for a traditional style home. Privet hedge around on the street elevation, boxwood, cherry laurel, hollies that adorn the front foundation, so fully evergreen all the way across the front.
Reflected in heights, do you have?
Yes, there's a table that reflects the species and
So streetscape, what are what's your proposed height on the vegetation you're proposing in the streets?
that's 4 to 5 foot privet as the perimeter. Of course, they grow 18 inches a year or more. This is, the boxwood hedge is 24 to 30 inches. Now, in some cases, there were low windows, so I'll be reacting to whatever changes occur in the architecture. But the foundation does have a brick facade, so some peaks of the foundation were perfectly appropriate in my view. 2 Japanese Zelkova trees on the corners of the property. Of course, that's a major tree, grows to 40 feet realistically. In the back, fully enclosed privacy planting. Crepe myrtle trees is a summertime landscape on the inside, so crepe myrtle trees provide more of an elevated cover for the summer landscape inside. Evergreen, green giant arborvitae, where neighboring house-to-house views would be all year round. Otherwise, it is a bluestone terrace, an in-ground gunite pool, fully enclosed with New York State pool enclosure fencing, and bluestone walkways that come in. So this walkway is actually reflective of what is coming up from the front street. Pea gravel driveway, cobblestone inlay at the road front, cobblestone repeated back at the garage entrance area, and 2 stone piers as entry markers, low, 30 inches, enough to put a flower pot on them.
Board members, any questions? Jeff?
Maybe like Susan was whispering, where's the
Where's
grass?
the grass? That's pretty
Plenty of grass.
populated.
So this is grass across the front, of course,
And
and a few small areas in the backyard.
They've covered, you've covered what you have to.
this is, granted, this is not in our domain, but the building department has that's okay in terms of all that impervious coverage?
So it's pea gravel driveway, so it's not impervious. There's no setback restrictions on the bluestone terrace. The pool is in compliance with the setback.
Right. And the foliage on Burnett Street?
It's
the
privet.
plantings, are those deciduous or?
It's privet, which is persistent. In a cold winter, they'll drop completely. But they're in leaf now, so everything else has fallen, but
So
privet is still in.
that pool will be pretty visible to the folks on Burnett Street. Would you think about putting arborvitae in there or something that's evergreen? I'm not a big fan of arborvitae, but maybe there's something other than a deciduous tree.
It would be my preference that we have the privet all the way around the road front on both sides. However, privet is in leaf now in December, and there's a cover on pools at this time of year. It's not a detrimental view when it comes out of leaf. There's not action going on in the pool area. However, if it was important to the board or to the client, I could switch over to evergreen. I think it's a stronger view that we have privet as the entire road front planting. It's not quite as busy.
Any other questions, Jeff?
Are there any trees being removed for the curb cut?
No.
Okay. Because I
I'll
can't
check that
recall.
because I think I'm
Yeah.
coming back next
You
month.
have
If you
almost no
could.
trees there.
Yeah, I think it's all sidewalk.
There was nothing on the survey.
In driving down that street, I think giving as much privacy to the pool year-round would be my preference.
Very good.
And I don't know how the other board members feel.
I'm waiting to see when you plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other
Yes,
questions?
I would prefer to wait to see the new.
Zach, no opportunity, I'm sorry, you have...
Yes, there is a solid fence behind the privet in this case, so that's a PVC fence
On Burnett Street as well?
on Burnett Street and then returning back to the house.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's a,
6 foot tall.
and that takes care of that concern.
Very good.
Zach, any further comments about the texture of the design, architecture, coverage from a historical standpoint?
Excuse me. Well, just briefly, this would be on that column of windows opposite the staircase, which, right, which we're not looking at now, but I guess we can all remember them. Historically, there's ample precedent for that. I think it relates to you're sort of going for a Queen Anne, sort of late Queen Anne period, let's just say. Let's just say that. So this, I think this is a very normal element. I understand that it seems as if we're designing from the inside out, but in fact, it's a staircase. And from the exterior, that's what that says. That reads that way and often does. I think and I'm not an architect, but you asked. I think where this becomes a little challenging is This pair of windows is repeated here at the top of this column, and it makes this seem a little awkward. I would say that the arrangement of the windows here should be their own thing. Could be diamond pane windows, for example. It could be its own thing, leaded glass, something entirely different, and not drawing this over as the top of that, because that creates a strange balance. But I just feel historically to have a column of windows that reflects the staircase is entirely understandable.
But to Zach, the sort of shape of them and that elongated...
Okay, I'm just saying,
Okay.
the idea, the
That to me is-
precedent,
and the-
how it's
the low line.
designed, I think it could be
That
its
whole-
own
Right,
thing.
and I would just take a slight issue with that, is I understand the historic nature of that, and that might be suitable if it was on a larger property. We're not talking about the property size or anything like that, but given this house on that property and where it is in proximity to the street and everything else, I think it creates a more massive-looking house. And yes, it's an English cottage somewhere 100 feet.
Out there.
Yeah, in a long driveway, yeah, maybe so.
Say to the
But it's
applicant,
right
you
on the
have-
street.
You have creative opportunity to
Right.
come before this board, and if that's an element that you really truly believe is something that you want to incorporate into the application, do so in a way that we feel that we would be able to appreciate. You heard some of the comments, you heard some of the reasons why. Maybe incorporate now a design, if that's what you're really truly looking to achieve, which will either soften or make it less impactful.
So, yeah, I really appreciate the comments. We'll take that task to heart, and we'll study options, and we'll submit it long before the next hearing, so you'll have a chance to digest it, and we'll make adequate presentation.
Also, smaller plans,
Yes.
so that we can all have the opportunity to review them independently.
Do I have to do a mailing if I come to the next meeting, or if it's publicly noted now? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on the application?
Thank you.
You have a comment? Okay. Step forward.
Beg your pardon.
I have a question. Just a quick question.
Your name for the record?
My name is Nancy Hawk. I live at 89 Little Plains Road, so I'm directly south to this property. And looks like it would be a big improvement to the hideous building that's there now. But my question is the accessory, well, I was concerned about the upper decking area. So I'm glad to hear that's going. But the accessory building, the garage, the setback is 5 feet? Is that correct? It is. Okay. I thought it was.
I believe it is.
Well, I hope you know, Bo.
I'm not the zoning attorney, I'm the ARB.
Well, then, Mr. Highsmith knows it's 5? Yeah, okay. It just sounded close.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further public comment? All right, so you have some homework, and we'll be coming back with new plans. You're asking this board to adjourn so you can prepare yourself?
Yes.
All right. Therefore, the motion would be to approve applicant's request to
I make a
adjourn.
motion that we approve the applicant David Hewlin on Middle Plains Road, request to adjourn to our next meeting.
There's a motion by Christina.
I second the motion.
Second by Susan. All in favor? Jeff?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to make sure demo is noted on the next application.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
please.
So do I ask,
It's on the application, it's just not on the agenda.
so should I ask the people at the building department to?
Please do, and I'll do so as well. So
Great, thank you.
The more, the better. For the record, there was an aye by Christina, by Susan, by Jeff, and myself. That concludes our historic application for this
We
evening.
have one more request.
There's a formal request to review an application under Section 116.28K for
In the file from Board of Appeals.
the Board of Appeals asking that we review this.
The ZBA?
The village zoning.
Okay? So the applicant or person,
Yeah, it's Phil
representative? Okay.
For the record, Gilbert G. Flanagan, 21 South Main Street, Southampton. I'm really not an applicant. This is a rather an unusual situation. In fact, I don't know how many referrals you've gotten from the Board of Appeals. in the past.
One.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm number 2. So this is a request for you to review the application we have pending before the Board of Appeals for the necessary variances to maintain the existing, what's now the existing residence on this property so that it can revert to its original use as a gatehouse, which is how it started its life. And I gave all of you, I think, in the submission, a copy of Section 116, 28K, which asks you to look at whether or not the building in question would meet any of the criteria for designation as a landmark under Chapter 65, and that's really what we're...
Is the property located in the historic?
It is listing in the historic district, and it is a contributing property. I've
And
submitted...
therefore, it doesn't need designation. It would be part of,
Right.
part of part would be identified as a contributing structure within the historic district.
Right, it's both, and I submitted quite a lengthy thing, and it's a late evening, I can go through this material, but there's a volume of paperwork which I've given to you, all of which has been seen by the Board of Appeals. Had an initial presentation last month, and they made the referral. They also suggested, both the Board of Appeals attorney and your attorney had suggested that I come here and make a presentation and answer any questions so that you can come up with a report.
We just got this information.
Excuse
This was
me?
received at the building department on the 6th of December.
No, it wasn't on the agenda until this evening, this afternoon, that I know anything about. Where's
So
my
far as I
agenda?
know, it was as of last week when I checked, at the end of last week when I checked with
Okay, well,
in any
So,
event,
Gil,
it's a referral.
And may, forgive me for asking, so the basic question is the use of the house?
That's what we're before the Board of Appeals for, and there's a section of the code that when a building of historic significance is threatened,
Right.
we can seek to have a change of use to maintain it. So this is an unusual app. I'm here to ask to be able to save the building.
Right, or is there going to be any change to the building?
Yes, it's going to change from the primary residence to a guest house.
Okay.
No physical
But no
changes.
physical
No
changes.
physical changes,
Okay,
not one nail,
That's what I
not
wanted to
one...
understand, thank you.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Is there a blue sheet on this?
Yeah, I believe it's a contributing structure.
It is.
to the district. Yeah.
It is. I've submitted
But-
material that is.
So the request is to change its status from being the principal dwelling on the property to that of a accessory structure.
Correct, which is how it started out. That's
Wait,
correct.
Right, this
So
was
it's-
this
it
a
was
very
the
historic
accessory-
property.
One at a time, please, one at a time.
It was...
This was a very historic property at one time that was raised in the, it was the Villa
Millie Fiore.
Thank you.
Right.
And it was raised,
The
something-
1930s.
The main house.
right, the main house,
Right.
and this is what survives.
Yes,
But this was built as an accessory structure to the main.
absolutely.
Main house that
It shows
doesn't
on the
exist.
old
But
Sanborn
with
maps, yeah.
the removal or demise of the principal dwelling, it becomes the only structure for the principal dwelling.
That's
But the
correct.
blue sheet has the whole, and therefore,
It was, the main house was long gone, so this is
Okay.
the only building on the property.
okay.
So now this is to seek to recognize it as that secondary structure again, so as to enable,
they're changing it?
Construction of a new main dwelling on the lot, which is in excess of it's almost 4.5 acres. That's
So,
it in a
but you're
nutshell.
seeking to change all this,
the use.
nothing to the
No
exterior?
physical change,
So
no physical...
I don't see our,
See, I don't understand this.
hold on a second, Counsel, I don't see our position and it's a structure that's not changing or adjusting, moving or doing, and you're not even relocating it on the parcel, are you?
No.
First of all, it's not an application, but I'm not
So it's a
seeking.
referral. This is all proper. It's a
Right.
referral.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right? So you're being asked for your comments
right.
about the change of use. You may have suggestions about how it's to be maintained, if there's anything now that should currently be addressed. You're not here to rubber stamp it. You're here to analyze this and determine how this house will move forward into the future and what you could anticipate for possible modifications in the future. Somebody coming along and wanting to expand it, you can address all those issues at this time so that, we can get ahead of the curve on some of these things and not be surprised if somebody walks in 3 years from now and wants to triple the size of the building.
I could just say a couple of things. If you look at specifically at on page 116, 196. Specifically, you're being asked under 116, 28K to determine whether or not the building meets one or more of the criteria for designation as a landmark. That's really what you're being asked to do. Now, as far as what Mr. Robinson said, I can mention to you that if you look at the surveys which was submitted, this entire building is located within the front yard setback of Great Plains Road, so even 1 square foot of expansion would require a variance from the Board of Appeals. On top of which, if it does revert to an accessory dwelling, even 1 square foot of expansion would require a variance because that's a non-conforming use. And third, if it is expanded or altered, it would have to come back to you in any event. So I think really it's a fairly limited thing you're being asked to consider is whether or not this building is historic and should be preserved. That's
First things first, I think I would imagine, and I would assume, that we first ask Zach to do an overview of the building, just to give a historical, and then by means of this board, the recommendation that we do or do not deem it as historic, and therefore what the parameters of that would be. Now, if it is discovered that the building is a contributing structure within the historic district and still holds on to that designation, then the recommendation of this board is that it would move forward, or any continual application, including additions or removals or demolishment, would fall within the compliance of any historic structure that's contributing within the historic district. Does that make sense?
a complete
Not
summary
sure
of how I
exactly
see
what you just said, other than it is what it is.
That's what I was trying to say, but you said it better.
It's contributing,
Okay.
it's in the historic district.
Yeah,
As
well-
a contributing within the historic district, there's a set code and direction that we follow, and that this is just more of a request of support to move forward with what we already deemed as a contributing structure in the historic district.
It's
All
not
right, so
deemed a
let's go.
contributing structure, it is a contributing structure. So
Therefore,
the issue is, do you have any commentary on it moving forward?
But the issue is, I think, again, if you look at the statute, the standard is whether or not it's contributing, whether it meets any one of the criteria for a historic structure. If it does,
But wasn't that predetermined? Isn't that how it was, it exists now?
it was determined as far as the village's records are concerned. It's listed on your inventory. It's summarized individually in the study that was done by the SPLIA in the 1970s. Its condition then was designated as excellent. But I think it needs a formal determination from this board that you agree with all of that.
all right, Zach, please do a report, and come back with findings of this particular application, give a historical evaluation over time, the removal of, I guess it would have been a mean, and come back to the next meeting with the information. And then we will come back with our findings or recommendation after Zach's report.
That would be terrific. It might be interesting to read some of the historical information. I was fascinated.
Yeah.
Fascinated.
Thank you.
Thank you very
It's not a
much.
formal application, it was not requested to be open, therefore we don't have to close or adjourn for any purposes.
Thank you very much.
First application, non-historic.
See, it was going to the building department, but not to us.
Application on historic is Fork and Boylan.
Well, I was there this morning, it wasn't there, it was just more of the same. Oh no, here we go again.
Good evening. Joe Pajak, architect, for the owner applicant, John Boylan, Sarah Burke. I don't have any new drawings. This is my fourth time before the board. There's been no public objection to the gates, these driveway gates. We've went over the design. I don't think the size or the design or any aspect of that is questionable or objectionable to the board. My clients asked me over the weekend when I met with them, why is it that there are other gates on the street, and are we entitled to them? I believe they are under the code. If they're not, please let me know. Otherwise,
At our last meeting, there were two objectives to the driveway gates, just because of the community, and the introduction of these driveway gates would be something they felt that was not in keeping with the overall contexture of the community. I believe that you have a right to build driveway gates on the parcel. The question is design, and if it meets our requirements, or at least our standards that we've set forward in terms of driveway gates. I believe they were. I believe Christine has also agreed. The questions were with other two board members whether they did. The applicant's coming back before us on no new designs, but feels that within his given right, he has the ability as well as the code that supports that he is able and capable of building driveway gates on the parcel. Susan, have you changed or?
Yes.
Okay.
Although I don't think it adds to the neighborhood, I do think you have the right to build them, so.
Thank you.
How tall is that, though?
4'3"
Oh,
at
no.
the...
Okay, yeah, right, I remember this.
Jeff?
Okay,
I'm actually not prepared to vote yea or nay on it. There is some internal discussion, but we submitted some information that I'll review having to do with rights one way or the other.
well, do we have to wait again?
No, you have a quorum, so
Okay.
there's a
Any
quorum
public
here.
comment on the application?
It's up to vote. All I'm saying is I'm not voting.
Please step forward.
My name's John Pierce. I'm actually an applicant also on Somerset Avenue. I will be coming, I think, 8th in the non-historic preservation
Sorry,
list.
it's-
I just wanted to be known that I support the application. It's the same street, and you'll hear from me shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
Any further public comment? All right, seeing that it meets both the transparency that we asked for, it's, the design itself is not overwhelming. I requested that the board, is there a motion to approve the application as submitted?
Make a motion that we approve the application for Bork and Boylan on Somerset Avenue for driveway gates.
I second the motion.
The motion was by Christina, it was seconded by Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Christina, aye.
Susan, aye.
Jeff?
I abstain.
Abstain. Curtis is an aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next application, please.
The next application is Dominic Mahoney Jr. on Harvest Lane for driveway gate.
Good evening. After the last meeting, there was some concern over the stone piers and the massing of the gates, so and there was also some confusion over to the location where some of the board members initially thought they were at the street. The gates are over 150 feet removed from the street, so we've come back with a new plan that has white AZAC columns, no stone, and lowered the height of the gates.
You have a copy of the gate?
Yes, sir.
You lay it flat on the table, facing us, so that the people can see it. So they're white gates, there's no light, not lighting or lanterns
No.
on top, just, okay. What's the spacing on top, for the record?
1 inch spacing,
1 inch spacing. But it's set back how far from the road?
152 feet.
Okay, so it's not seen from,
Yeah.
okay. Bob, what about you?
I didn't recognize that originally.
Okay. Do you have any
No.
opposition or
No.
oppose the application
Nope,
in any
it's
way?
fine.
Christine?
Wait, it's 8 feet tall, these piers, though? Those seem really excessively tall. 8 feet?
You have issues with the
Piers?
piers being so high?
I guess you can't see them from the street, but they seem excessively high to me. I'm not going to stop them.
Is there any public comment on the application? Since there's no objection, motion would be to approve the application as submitted.
Motion that we approve the application of Dominic Mahoney Jr. on Harvest Lane for driveway gates.
Motion was for Christine, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Susan, all in favor. Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And Curtis is an aye as well.
Okay, Jim.
Thank you.
Bob.
You're going to miss some fun.
Next application, please.
The next application is Christopher and James Lynch on Roscoe Drive.
The applicant, John Bennett, with me this evening is the project architect,
Let the record reflect Christine is recused.
as well as Tim I just wanted to remind the board, the last time we were here, there were some concerns about the height of the existing privet screening, so we've placed that on the renderings, and Tim may have some comment about just telling you how high they are. We also, the board had some concerns about the manner of presentation, about the renderings. We've fixed that, we believe. We did remove a second-story deck that was looking to the neighbor to the east, and removed a railing over the, I guess it was the south side of the one-story portion of the house. I do have just, to just get this in the record so that you can see it. I think Mr. Broadley had a question about the width of the house in relation to the width of the lot. So what we did do is we put together, including the supporting surveys, the lot width, house length in feet, and percentage of lot width that the home is occupying, not only on the subject property, but on recent constructions on 10 Johnny Lane, 66 Leo's Lane, 90 Leo's Lane, 34 Oldfield Lane, 35 Raymond's Lane, and 37 Leo's Lane. And you'll see that as compared to the percentage of lot width that the home is occupying, the proposed house is one of the lower percentages. Not that that has anything necessarily to do with the ability to change the dimensions of a house as opposed to comment of the architecture. But we thought for your comfort you might want to see that so that you can see that nothing unusual is happening based upon the existing development of the property. We also have, and I don't want you to be concerned that much about it, I have a revised landscape plan, but it's revised only because we've switched out some cryptomeria and put in arborvitae. But it doesn't change the location or size or height of any of the houses. I did before Mayron, I just want to get this stuff out of the way as quickly as possible so that I won't interrupt the architect's presentation. There should be in the record, were dropped off at the building department, letters of support from William and Alyssa Goldstein, 10 Johnny Lane, Jordan Schweon, 7 Johnny Lane, who's across the street from Goldsteins, and Carrie and Peter, 90 Leo's Lane. The house meets all zoning requirements. It actually removes a nonconformity as the existing structure is 32.7 feet from the property line to the west, which is Roscoe Drive. I think, bear with me one second. I believe, and maybe I may have this as well, but I believe Ms. Stevenson wanted to see a relationship. Again, we're providing this for you, but I don't know necessarily what it has to do with your jurisdiction, but nevertheless, we'll provide it for you. The existing house size as opposed to the proposed house size, so we have placed that on a site plan for you. The existing house size is in red, the proposed house is in blue. Give you the copies of these, and underneath these are also smaller versions of the renderings that Mayron is going to show to you. Just going to make sure that's all I have. There was some comment at the last meeting that the purpose of this application is to, quote, get around a zoning board of appeals variance. Actually, we did go to the zoning board of appeals for a request for a pool in a functional, in a technical front yard. And under the state law, Mr. Robinson can tell you, your counsel can tell you, that when you can achieve the benefit that you're seeking by some means other than a variance, you're supposed to do that. Thus, the redesign of the house to place the pool in a purely conforming location. Mayron?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. A few quick notes. The renderings and the drawings that you have before you, we made two major changes. Well, renderings first. as per board's request, we included the landscaping and the actual rear yards and the side yards in the renderings that you have in the packet, in the file. So they represent the actual landscaping that is proposed. I think the issue that the board had with the previous renderings were the front yard were digitally shown too large. Now, if you look at the new renderings, they represent the correct side yards as per that proposed site plan. That's number one. Number two, we also made a major change in the design in the rear, completely removed the deck, also the railing associated with it.
It's right here. Did you want to show that?
Yes, it is right here. There was a deck back here. We removed the door, placed a window. We could have kept the railing, but we decided to get rid of it so that there are no issues or assumptions that it would be a deck in the future. So that deck is removed. There was a railing also here, which was shown in the front elevation. That is also removed, although there was never access to it, but the board had an issue with it, so that was removed. There was also issues with the reality of the rendering, and we have graphically shown the 6 to 8 inches approximately of that patio that is elevated off the grass. So we tried to be as real as possible with the technology, with the renderings. That is, and we're open to any, I'm open to any comments or any comments the boards might have. The board, that's it for my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Tim will just quickly take you through the, excuse me, revised planting plan. Again, for any new applications, rather some species, but I'll let Tim discuss that.
Also, forgot to mention, the new material was submitted to the building department last Thursday, so that the neighbors or board members had an opportunity to review.
Thank you for your courtesy in getting that in earlier.
Not a problem.
Mr. Chairman, board members, Tim Rum from Aris Design. As Mr. Bennett mentioned, we've changed the species of the evergreen trees from the cryptomeria and originally English holly shown on the original plan. They're now green giant arborvitae, 20 to 22 feet tall. This is the border. This picture represents the border to the east, which is this border here. There's an existing 12-foot hedge, which is represented here, and then these are the representative locations of the arborvitae, which will be on our client's side of that existing evergreen, privet hedge. Very simple.
So how will the property to the east be buffered, Tim, in terms of height and species?
Well, you have the 12-foot existing hedge and then the 20-foot high arborvitae.
Could you show us on the site plan?
Right here. Mm-hmm. This is the existing hedge. Mm-hmm. These are the proposed plantings.
Okay. There was a question about, a person in the community questioned visibility, especially and specifically going around the corner there. Is there any way to mitigate that at all?
Well, this is the location of the proposed 20-foot arborvitaes on the corner of the southerly corner.
Okay.
All right.
So there was some discussion that you have to be able to have a sight line when you go around the corner?
We're not in the right of way.
No, this is over the top of, this is an aerial. You can see that there are existing trees in the right of way, the village right of way. The pavement is out here.
Okay, so the hedge is set back about how far from the street?
These were conclusory claims, but the facts don't. No, I just want to say, but the facts don't.
It was brought up somehow in the building department. I don't know. It was mentioned in the building department.
Here.
I didn't pursue it.
It's a photo, too.
Yeah, please. Where are you demonstrating?
That's
Right over here.
here.
Okay.
These are the trees, the larger trees. This is the 6-foot stockade fence that's shown
On the property line.
on the property line.
And all this, these trees are in the village right-of-way.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, it's an approved lot on a subdivision, engineered, designed subdivision.
Anything further?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Jeff, any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the public.
Okay. Susan, do you have comments?
I think, no.
Just to reflect, I did question the building department with regards to the legality of the pool, and the question it being in a side yard, and reflecting any, potential either oversight or sideway deal. They explained to me that it totally complies, there are no issues with the application as submitted in terms of its legal standing and being presented. Is there any public comment? Please step forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Fred Wynford. I reside at 45 Roscoe Drive, approximately across the street from the subject property. As I had mentioned at the last meeting, I am opposed to this application based on the size of the structure and the imbalance it will create in this area of the Roscoe community. As stated at the last meeting, the issue of the 28-foot long by 8-foot wide appendage that's on the south side of the dwelling, and to repeat, is nothing more than creative architecture to circumvent the Zoning Board of Appeals with respect to the swimming pool. That's one issue, but it does contribute to the mass of this structure. It's another 28 feet coming out when you're viewing it from the front. But my focus tonight is the entire size of this subject. Counsel for the applicant has stated in the past that the ARB has no authority with respect to the size of the proposed dwelling. But I believe he is only looking at it from the viewpoint of zoning. But now the application is before the Architectural Review Board, who, in my opinion, has different authority and responsibility. I have reviewed the village code and found that duties of the architectural review, as detailed under paragraph 116-33, subparagraph A, are pretty specific. I believe the key words here are that the board is charged with disapproving the construction of buildings designed without consideration of the harmonious relation to such buildings as already exist. Subparagraph B further states that the board is charged with rejecting plans which, in its opinion, are not of harmonious character. So let's take a look at what's surrounding this subject. I've taken some pictures, and I'd just like to comment on each of the buildings, each of the homes. Now, to the east of the subject property, we have 18 Adams Lane, which is 1,328 square feet in size. Directly across the street to the north of the subject, we have a building, a home, single-story ranch house, as is the prior one I mentioned. 5 Adams Lane is 1,208 square feet. Now, moving to the west, because of the width of this lot, it encompasses not only the entire frontage of 59, but also half the frontage of 45. 59 Roscoe Drive is 1,664 square feet. It's a Cape-style house, has a full dormer across the back. 45 Roscoe is a single-story ranch house with 1,194 square feet of living area. Now, let me just focus on one other thing, if I may, and that is, by the way, my numbers, my square footage numbers are coming from the assessor's office, and I have printouts to confirm the square footage. Let me just focus on this, if I can, for a minute. This is an aerial view. Again, I acquired this from the assessor's office because it was hard to get aerials without full vegetation on the trees that surround the property. I think it's important to note, this is Roscoe Drive coming in, headed south. Adams Lane coming in this area. You have Raymond's Lane coming in here, and this eventually turns into South Roscoe. You can see that this is actually a peninsula, if you will. This lot sticks out and is a peninsula. And as we had previously said, it's a focal point within the community. Now, moving along with the other examples that I have here, 6 South Roscoe Drive, another single-story ranch, is actually situated right here. As you come around South Roscoe, it's right here, and actually sits behind, if you will, 18 Adams. And the other property I'm going to refer to here is this piece right here that's actually to the southwest of the subject. It's 2,179 square feet. Interesting to note that when this house was originally built, this area right here was a breezeway, and this was a garage. It was subsequently converted into living area. Hence, it's 2,179 square feet. The average square footage, if you take those 6 homes and you average the square footage, it comes out to 1,555 square feet is your average of the 6 homes that surround the subject property. The average size of these homes is only 40% in size of what is proposed. 40%. In other words, the proposed dwelling is more than twice the size of the average home around it. Harmonious? I don't think so. And I hope you will agree by exercising your authority in disapproving this application. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Good evening. I want to thank each of you for providing a fair hearing that has allowed those most directly affected by the building plans at 58 Roscoe Drive to express their opposition to those plans. We have spent several months before the ZBA in opposing the applicant's request for variances to permit a pool in the front yard, as well as setback requirements for this accessory structure. We have prevailed in convincing the ZBA not to grant the necessary variances for the pool. Mr. Bennett points out that he is providing a house that meets all the variances. Well, why did we spend 4 months before the ZBA with him seeking the variances? Although we also complained of the size and height of the home in earlier plans, we were advised by the ZBA that they could do nothing about it since the plans met the pyramid law and did not exceed the maximum permitted square footage for residential usage for this size lot. Today we are confronted with the same pool the ZBA would not approve, together with a 28-foot by 7-foot extension to the previously designed house to serve as a pool house now. This massive home is being placed in the very epicenter of the neighborhood, abutting 4 main roads and in the middle of 6 modest original single-story ranch homes in Cape Cods. This extension, which I have referred to as a bowling alley, will expand the width of the home to 103 feet. In comparison, my front yard is 93 feet wide in its entirety, and my house and attached garage is 45 feet. I believe the other surrounding homes have similar dimensions, but I acknowledge that I have not measured them. Adding to the structure's enormous mass are the 29 windows, 3 dormers, and entryway, as shown in the front elevation renderings. The front elevation renderings were corrected to show the 40-foot front yard. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than the first version that was presented to this board. They do not show the rear, but that's only 20 feet. So think about it, that will be 1/2 the size that they're showing on the front. Mr. Bennett's tirade directed at Mr. Broadleib, suggesting that the ARB cannot mandate changes to the site plan, such as removing the bowling alley wing that has no architectural purpose other than to circumvent the ZBA authority and jurisdiction with respect to the pool, and that adds significantly to the mass of the structure in relationship to its neighboring properties, is bewildering. Section 11633, Duties of the Board, states, and I quote, "The Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation is charged with the duty of maintaining the desirable character of the municipality and of disapproving the construction, reconstruction, and alteration of buildings or signs that are designed without consideration of the harmonious relation of the new or altered building to such buildings as already exist and the environs on which they are set. The board is charged with the duty of exercising sound judgment and of rejecting plans which, in its opinion, are not of harmonious character because of proposed style, materials, mass, and I emphasize the word mass, color, detail, or placement upon the property, or in relationship to the spaces between buildings or the natural character of landscape." Remember, this is a very unusual lot. 3 front yards. You probably have 3 or 4 in the entire village that meet these criteria. It appears abundantly clear to me that this board has the authority, using its sound judgment, to require the elimination of a design element, the bowling alley, that unnecessarily adds to the mass of the house, and to require landscaping plans to protect the privacy of surrounding property owners, which I'm glad to see they have done. It is also clear that the board can require the repositioning of the home on the lot to bring it into harmony with the other homes along Adams Lane that are set back 50 feet from the road. In exercising this authority, the board is not interfering with applicant's desire and right under the zoning code to build his retirement home at a maximum GFA of 3,914 square feet with a 32-foot roof line that meets the pyramid law. I am confident, as I hope each of you are, that an Article 78 proceeding challenging your authority in this specific case would not be successful, and that if it were, that this new Village Board of Trustees would authorize a vigorous appeal of any such Supreme Court decision. I thank you for your hearing me out.
Thank you.
Robert Smith.
Any additional public comment? Mr. Ford?
Good evening. Evelyn Conrad, 18 South Roscoe. My neighbors have done such a wonderful job. I want to add just one thing that I think is very important. This is a totally unique lot in its configuration. It's a little peninsula, as was correctly stated. I've been in Southampton since '59. I don't know of any other. But what is so relevant here, I'm sorry, dry. What is so very relevant here is that the surroundings are not streets. Don't start thinking Hill Street or Little Plains or the South Main Street. These are tiny little lanes that were very adequate for 1,300 square foot ranches and even little 2,000 square foot colonials. Furthermore, there is a particular objection, a legal objection, to the planting. Please, I have to go by there 2, 3, 4 times a day. May I just get onto this? Yeah. This is Adams. This is Roscoe. This is Raymond's, and this is South Roscoe. Now, this is a dreadful curve. It is a dangerous curve. I've almost been smashed by an SUV. We didn't have many SUVs when it was ranches and colonials. Now, This street has roughly a dozen and a half houses, and of course there's some from Ann's Lane that use this, but they don't use it just for driving up to Hill Street or into the village. They use it for strollers, for bicycles, for children. And this blocking of that curve is not even permitted by the very generous zoning code that you have now. We used to have this as plain lawn, which made that little ranch there perfectly safe because you could see practically up to Hill Street. Now, if this house comes, it's a little, forgive the parallel, it's a little as if you had the Pan Am building on top of Park Avenue, but Park Avenue now is a one-lane street, not 8 lanes, and no center street. It's up there. And so it's visually distracting for driving. Furthermore, I heard at the building department today that they're planning to make these 4 feet. I'm not 4 feet high when I'm in my car. I don't drive an SUV. When you have the school bus going down our little streets, you can possibly have one other car passing either way or someone walking. You can't have both. So what I'm saying is, please understand this is an extremely unique situation. It's not just that it's that we care about it, it's a question of safety for an entire community. Those from Johnny's Lane and from Leo's Lane can go another way. But those who come from Ann's Lane and South Roscoe, and that's easily 24, have to go this way. You can't do that landscaping, not legally and not in terms of safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. Any rebuttals before we continue?
Just quickly, 24 homes in the Roscoe community have been redeveloped in the last 10 years, all in square footages essentially similar to the proposed house, and we submitted that evidence in the record in the last meeting. The lot is an approved lot on an engineered filed subdivision map. What you're hearing is site plan concerns, which of course are not the job of this board. All of the setbacks have been confirmed, and contrary to Mr. Smith's concerns or questions or suggestions, you can't reposition the house. The Zoning Board of Appeals did not deny any variance. The board acknowledged that the house could be redesigned so that a pool could be constructed in a conforming location, and they asked us to do that, which is what we're doing. So, and I just, it's not in the historic district, and in terms of height, setbacks, size, this has been litigated. This was 8 or 9 years ago. This board, not currently staffed as this board is now, but nevertheless it's the law. There have been no changes to the law. Tried to downsize a house, make the house smaller, push the house in, make the house less wide. And then Article 78 proceeding that I successfully litigated, the Ferrara decision stated that those are the issues for the building department. So again, there's no sleight of hand or any fancy dealing here as being suggested. The house is designed as directed by the Zoning Board of Appeals so that the pool is in the actual rear yard. It's behind the house. The pool meets with all setbacks, and that's the purpose of it. I understand that communities change, and there have been some of the people in the Roscoe subdivision that bemoan the change of the community from one of post-war ranch houses to more traditional two-story gabled roof homes, but that has been what has happened on 24 of the lots by our latest count, and I don't even think it counts one that's under development now. This is something that conforms in all aspects. Of course, if there are changes about the fenestration or the architecture, the materials, or anything like that that you would like to comment on, certainly those we'd be glad to address those or to make any changes, quite frankly.
You had more to say?
A few more comments, Mr. Chairman, in addition to what Mr. Bennett said. The gentleman mentioned that this property is the focal point of the neighborhood. I think compared to what's there now and what we're proposing, we're actually beautifying the neighborhood, number one. And number two, as John mentioned, these are the homes that the gentleman displayed in that presentation were mostly one-story homes. I've done over 20 projects in the village, and I don't see anybody going through the process of building a one-story house for themselves. I'm not talking a spec house, number one. Our needs have changed. We don't drive a car that's 50 years old. We don't wear the clothes that are 50 years old. So the houses have changed also with that trend, although some people still wear the same clothes. But anyway, so we tried very hard, knowing that this is a challenging lot, three front yards. We met all the requirements. This was actually 30% more challenging than the other 20 projects we've done in the village. So the neighbors come up with, and I feel for them, they come up with questions of the side yards or the front yards or the heights. Everything meets the building requirement criteria. So I think maybe they should voice their opinions to the zoning book that gives me the criteria to work with. So, I mean, if I'm given a criteria of 30 feet and the building owner wants a two-story house, I will make sure it's 29, 28 feet, and I try to use what I'm given. I would not design a house that's one story because they need room, families have grown, and so forth. Last comment was working with Mr. and Mrs. Lynch. I think they have gone through a great deal with myself, Mr. Bennett, and Mr. Rumpf for the presentation, for the challenges, for everything, to accommodate the neighbors. They're spending, and we're not going to talk dollars, a lot of money just doing the landscaping, just to benefit the neighbors, that they don't have to do. So I think if the neighbors have problems with the size of this property, they should go back to the zoning book and change that. Thank you.
I'm sure there's rebuttal. Is there something new or addition to what has not already been?
You want to comment on the point about...
You have to come forward. It has to be part of record. And you're adding to what you've already not discussed or said this evening?
In terms of the argument about size, okay, I mentioned length, I mentioned windows, I mentioned mass. I read the English language. I read what your authority of the board is. Bad law, okay? Supreme Court decision is the lowest court in the state, not the highest court. To claim that a Supreme Court decision for the last 10 years has destroyed the authority of this board to comment on architecture, all right? We're talking about mass. All of the other buildings that were referred to in our community, all right, were never complained about. Again, it's this specific lot, this specific house. It's all combined into one structure. All of those other homes had separate garages, separate pool houses. This is one structure. Everything had to be included in the main structure in order not to be a separate lot that couldn't be put with the 3 front yards. I understand it was an architectural difficulty coming up with this. Fine, build the 3,914 square foot house, but not with that extension. That extension only adds to the mess.
Thank you, sir. Anything further? Anything to add to was not already discussed this evening?
Yes. I would just like to comment on, and I haven't done a count, I'd have to check on it, on the 24 homes that were mentioned that have been renovated or added onto within the Roscoe community. I think it's also important to note that there's over 60 homes in there. So it's a percentage of the homes in Roscoe, but, the lots tend to appear to be overbuilt as far as I'm concerned. And I think this is an opportunity for the board to possibly scale back, slow down this overdevelopment that we've had in the village and that we're experiencing. Still, it's 24 lots, as has been claimed. I would need to verify that number, but I know there's over 60 homes in the Roscoe community. So here's an opportunity to stop the overdevelopment or slow it down, or within reason, have a discussion about putting homes in the Roscoe community that really conform. Again, remember, what's proposed here is more than twice the size of what the existing homes are around it. So, and I think there's a responsibility here to maintain the character of our community, and I think this is a good example and an opportunity to do that. Thank you.
All right. We're circling around. I mean, and I've asked several times if this has been more.
It's a 67-lot subdivision.
Okay, okay.
That's all.
67-lot subdivision.
Exactly.
Jeff, please, any comments?
Yeah. As Mr. Smith alludes to, this is, in as much as some of the other properties were not an issue, this one is an issue. And for me, it's a difficult issue. Let me say, first and foremost, architecturally, I do believe that the house as rendered looks distorted, if you will, architecturally with the addition and how it sits on the property. And so my perspective and my opinion is first and foremost related to the architecture. At the same time, I'm cognizant, and my belief is that the code is clear in 11633 B and 11632G as to what we can do, what we can look at, and the requests we can make and the changes. I'm also appreciative and cognizant of what Mr. Bennett submitted in terms of the percentage of frontage. And currently 60%, it's a 60-40, and he's coming in at 55%. And then it's further complicated by the fact that this is a unique lot in a changing neighborhood. Roughly, whether it's 27 houses out of 60 or 30 out of 60, that's pretty much half the lots. So it's definitely a neighborhood in transition. And at the moment, I need a little bit more time to drive the neighborhood and come to a conclusion, at least a personal judgment in terms of how I would vote.
Susan?
Well, I do think that the extension, as I'm calling it, that encompasses the pool housey part of this, looks like it is tacked onto this thing in order to have the pool, which is true. So the question is, and it's unfortunate, really. I need more time to, I don't know, I mean, even the bulky roof lines in the back.
Those are due to the pyramid, if you're talking about the gable cuts in the back.
Well, but there, I'm sure it's due to the pyramid, but there are other ways. I mean, reducing some of this, so this looks very blocky. I mean, this is, this, and then this, I find it, I understand what you're saying, but it's not a prerequisite for a building, is it?
No, it's not, but again, we're going back to 3 front yards.
Right, but that is the nature of the beast.
Right, we're locked
It's like saying you bought a house in the historic, I mean, you get what you get. People have to deal with the situation.
Right.
And we have, that's why it conforms to all the codes.
Right.
I'm sure it conforms to the codes. Architecturally, I think it has issues.
If you could tell us what the issues
The
are.
issue is the appendage.
Yeah, but the appendage, you can comment about the architecture of the appendage, you can't comment about
Just the mere
length.
fact of the appendage sways the building, to me.
I understand.
I mean, anyone would see that, Mr. Bennett.
Understand.
I understand why it's there, but I'm just saying, I don't know.
No, but it's there, ask your counsel about your ability.
Oh, I'm not going to argue this thing over and over again with you. Please, do not start with me. I'm not interested.
Case law on it.
With your, I'm not a lawyer. We're discussing the architecture, yes or no?
I would like to see
I'm finished.
Going back and forth is not
Okay,
helping.
I'm discussing the architecture. I'm done discussing it.
Okay. We have limitations with regards to your site, the dimensions of your site. You're trying to mitigate that by keeping a one-story appendage for purposes of creating the pool environment, understandably. I think if we can do something about bringing the roof lines down a little bit more, especially specifically in the entryway. If we can bring that down more so that it doesn't have such a massive presentation from that aspect, maybe that can mitigate some of the
You're talking about the front, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'm talking about the front. So I'm looking at the front elevation, just the photo. Again, based on what you're proposing to us, if there's a way to bring that, it's reading as a 3-story, right, especially specifically in the front.
Right.
We can still some way to diminish that or reduce that. I know what will end up happening. I know that the front gables will end up widening and look kind of chubby, but
maybe that works better.
Take a look, and maybe there's even another configuration in terms of the gables that we could maybe weaken or lighten or soften the impact in the front.
We can certainly look at that.
Get rid of this, too?
Try to.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, that's 3, is that 2 stories or 3 stories?
Well, that's what I said, that the perception from, there's a dormer, seems to be attic, to recreate natural attic space, correct? Is that open space or an attic space?
I'm sorry, which one you...
I'm talking about the dormer on the third floor.
Right, that came up in the last meeting, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
it did.
That is open to the foyer.
Open to the foyer.
Everybody the entrance.
Okay.
So it's actually, it's not a 3rd story, but if board has issues with it, we can address
All
it.
right,
What it's
that's
doing is it's
explained.
linearly creating the optics of a 3-story building.
3rd story, yeah.
Well, how about the back? To me,
Can we
this
just,
is-
one at a time?
I'm going to say this one,
focus on
trying to do
the
one at a
front.
time. If there's something more that you want to add before I go move forward?
No, we
Well,
just
I'm in
having
agreement
That
with you
dormer-
that
Is that,
it gives it the appearance of a 3rd floor.
Correct.
is the dormer objectional? Okay, well, let's
But it's
get rid
also,
of it.
if we can some way, somehow,
It's a height of
either
house.
lighten the gables to create a little softer view. I think it's showing,
It's right there,
Yeah.
32 feet, I believe, 32, yeah.
All right, well, let's look at that.
with regards to the appendage, I hate saying this because I think we've gone so far away from where this village is by just throwing up hedging and screening just to hide back some of the front facades or side facades or the overall facade of a structure. I think it doesn't create an environment of community in doing so. However, if this is reading as a wide, long parcel and it seems to be objective by some of the community, because the streetscape is showing as this long, elongated structure, maybe some way of masking that, blending that, so that there's not such an impact from the street. I know it's necessary, I know it's...
I believe you have, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, I believe you have new renderings in the file that shows the actual landscaping
I saw one that said 8 feet.
in the front. Yes.
Okay, so that's not covering the roof line. How high is the...
It's not covering the roof line. I mean, it would be nearly impossible to cover the roof lines. If I'm standing on the street, I have to put up 25-foot high hedges not to see the roof. But you don't want to cover the house
If your
completely.
concern is the 1-story section of it, perhaps they could do something to
We could bring it up to 12 feet or 14 feet, that the vision would be just you would see the 1 story of the house, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so that, and not that we're talking about what's the use, because it's not within our purview, but I'm just
Right.
trying to understand, that's going to be usable space for storage, I'm assuming?
Oh, no, it's an actual,
It's like a bar or...
yeah, it's a bar, and it functions as the same sort of functions that you would use for...
It's an attached pool house because there was no other room for it, though.
Yes. And actually, to the extent that, everybody, people take these lots of this size and they put a garage on it, they put a pool house on it, and I actually think one of the things that you're seeing here is somebody put it all in one building as opposed to,
Right.
I mean, people have been heard to say, a pool house wants a bigger lot. We're not.
Well,
we're not trying to
let
do
me
that
just
right now.
respond to that too,
Okay.
because the garage, because it's part of a two-story portion of that wing of the house, you can't separate the two, but you can't separate the two. But if you could bring that roof line down, keeping it so that there's two wings and then a separate garage on the side, I don't know if you have the setback to do so, would that be possible?
When you say separate, you mean detached?
Yes,
Can't get there.
detached.
We don't have the room for
Can't
it.
get there.
Can't.
Can't get there.
No.
Don't have the room for it.
Remember what happens when the side yards become, the garage, what happens is the garage becomes, once you get in,
Accessory. Yeah.
once, sorry, I'm trying to say it the right way. What happens when you're in the plane of the principal structure, the garage is also subject to the principal minimum and overall side yard requirements. So it just you can't accomplish it.
And let me ask you this question.
Yep.
If you were to separate, is it possible? And I know what you're trying to accomplish, but is it possible to still do what you want to do, which is to place the pool there, and eliminate this section here, or which is the bath?
No, because what happens then is it becomes, it's not in the front yard. You can't have the accessory structure.
Yeah. See,
I would have done that if we could have.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well,
really, it's a zoning crunch there.
Yeah.
I can't.
And you're...
Trust me, I would have done that if I could.
Right, and you're asking us, we're not to approve something we're not architecturally comfortable with to accommodate a failing in the zoning code, and that's what I think, for me, is particularly difficult.
No, I understand it, but, and again, people don't like it when I say this, okay? But it is the law as it exists now, is that I'm meeting this setback.
I know.
Obviously, we're open to comments about the architecture, removing this
Well,
dormer,
that's what I
maybe
was
trying
saying,
to,
yeah.
that we'll do what we
My
can.
comment is architectural.
Excuse me?
I said my comment is architectural.
No, I understand. And listen, many times I've had conversations with the architects. It's very, very challenging when sometimes you're designing not to an aesthetic but a code, but sometimes that's what you have. So we've tried within that, those parameters to make it as attractive as possible. We've had some feedback about maybe eliminating some of the elements of it. We'll go back and we'll do that. We're trying.
Is there anything further? Anything further?
No.
Zach, do you have any comments? I know it's not a historic district, but it's right there, yeah. Do you have any comments, any issues, any concerns, or?
No.
So there were some suggestions made. You will go back and prepare whatever elements or changes are taken into consideration, and I'm assuming you come back with designs or a new design, which is something we'll look at. We would hope and we would pray that it would come into the file well before
We're going to try it.
the date of the
Mayor,
next
it's actually
meeting.
pretty quick with turnaround.
Well,
Yeah.
not during the holidays.
You might have to make an exception. I'll help you. I'll come over and help you draw it.
And therefore, you're asking this board to adjourn to the...
Please.
Motion to approve the applicant's request to adjourn, the applicant Christopher and Judy Lynch, 58 Roscoe Drive, to adjourn to our next meeting, the 8th of January.
The motion was done by Susan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor? Jeff?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Okay, Christine
Next,
back.
sir. She did.
One quick note, Mr. Chairman. I have case number 6. I would like to withdraw it on behalf of my client.
You want to, I'm sorry.
6?
Case number 6.
You're withdrawing?
1400 Meadow Lane.
Oh, okay.
Supposed to be withdrawn.
Oh, and it got back at the elevator, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so
Well,
motion...
we have to request it.
I did
Okay.
verbally last time. That's it.
Easy. Call first the application open, so 1400 Meadow Lane LLC. The applicants requested that the application be withdrawn.
Correct.
So motion to approve applicant's request to withdraw the application for 1400 Meadow Lane.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to withdraw the application for, what is it?
1400 Meadow.
Yes, a motion was by Christina. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Susan. All in favor? Christina?
Aye.
Aye.
Susan is an aye. Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you for
great.
seeing me out of order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Next
think-
application, please.
So now,
Yes.
Can I go?
Too bad for us. Yes.
Next
Why is
application.
that?
Glenn Edelson, 142 Cooper's Farm Road.
All right. Is the applicant present, please?
Yes.
Which one?
No.
On Cooper's Farm.
Yes, hi, Michael Berenger, I'm the architect
Back here.
for the
Okay,
applicant.
just with the architect.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, we had a little
That's okay,
confusion.
I'll wait.
We're ready.
Proceed, please.
At the last hearing, there was a question about screening between this property on Cooper's Farm and the neighbor to the north. I have some photographs. I can represent the project if you would like, or however you would like me to proceed. I don't know, you were going to go by and look at the screening.
So as of right now, you have no new elements, nothing to add to from the last last presentation? No alterations or changes?
No, sir. I will add that the screening is 25-foot tall evergreen trees along the property line, and that portion of the property is the parking area, so there's no ability to plant additional screening, and there are also no windows from my addition that faces that neighbor's property. It's actually superior screening, I believe, there.
And what you're saying is that the current existing screening is what will exist? Well,
Yes.
are you adding or
No.
creating any other buffer or screening?
No, sir.
You have questions, Jeff?
Well, I believe you were chatting with the neighbor last. Did you address her issues?
I only spoke to her at the table here.
She had an issue about it being two separate houses, but your plan, which I don't know if it is or it isn't, but your plan combines them, that's
Yes, it
correct?
does. Yes,
So
it
I had
does.
no objection.
Okay.
That's it.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Christina? Is any public comment on the application? I have no objection as well. Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of Glenn Edelson at 142 Cooper's Farm Road.
Michael, thanks for
The
coming
motion by
back.
Christina, is there a second?
No problem.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as
Just
well.
sit there.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay,
the patience.
okay.
Yeah,
problem.
good luck.
Next application, please.
Jeffrey and Julie Seaman at 2.2 Murray Place.
I'm Doug Bocchino.
Hi.
I'm the general contractor and agent for Jeff and Julie Seaman.
Application is to construct driveway gates, correct?
Correct.
Material, the driveway gates,
Exactly.
what color?
White.
What is spacing between the slats?
Balusters are 1.25 square, and the spacing is 2.25 in between each.
What is the percentage of transparency does it create?
It's over 50%.
And are there any lanterns, any lighting or anything?
No.
Projective
It's
lighting
just-
coming from the ground to the gates?
They're not lit.
They're not lit. And the height of
The piers are 6'6", a little, 6'6", and then the center of the gate is about 4'6".
Christine, any comments?
No.
Jeff, any comments?
No, not on this.
I have no comment.
Any public comment on the application? Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the driveway gates for Jeffrey and Julie Seaman on Murray Place. Would you like these?
I second the motion.
It's been motioned by Christina, second by Susan. All in favor? Susan?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, 1300 Meadow Lane.
Let's withdraw. So next application.
So then we have David Shaheen on Potato Field Lane.
Good evening. Robert Fischetti, attorney for David Sheehan and Michael and Salthouse, 40 Potato Field Lane, or Road, sorry. Ramon Martinez of Halcon Automatic Gates was here with you last time. Mr. Sheehan had asked me just to come to see the project through, or see the application through. Mr. Martinez has submitted a revised survey showing the gate at 30 feet. That's already, you have it in your file, right?
Yeah. You say revised, so we have this in file? Or?
Yes. The revised, you have it in your file. Yeah. Revised since the first time he was here, he had it at 18 feet. It's now at 30 feet.
I see it there, 30
feet. It's, you have the design, 6 feet high, 50/50 transparency. It's a white AZEK gate.
I believe the question of this application was whether it was something that community was in keeping with the community overall, or is there an issue, a challenge with the Potato Field Lane?
It's way back.
But it sits back.
So I don't have it.
1 second. Which design are you proposing? The horizontal or the vertical?
That's not yours, is it?
This is not.
No, that's not.
That looks like a different gate.
Sorry? All right, so put that away. That's the next application.
Okay.
It's okay.
We'll have that one.
I have it. So you're talking verticals, 50% transparency. The question before was it appropriate? I believe we addressed this earlier, that you have a right as an applicant to have driveway gates in your community or on your property or proposed. It is set back, a little different than most applications. You have the transparency this board is looking for. The question here is from an architectural standpoint, does the board have any questions with regards to how it's being presented on site? Susan, do you have any comments?
No, I don't think it's preferable, but I don't think I'd say no to it. It's pretty far back.
Jeff, any comments?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, given the distance from the street, and actually that design is reminiscent of a farm, so.
Yeah, and you can't see the house.
Yep.
Christina?
It's way back.
Yeah.
Any public comment on the application? There's no objection of the board nor from me, so the motion would be to approve the application.
Make a motion that we approve the application for David Shaheen on Potato Field Lane.
Motion was Christina. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Ms. Stevenson. All in favor? Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Christina? And I'm an aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Next application,
The
please.
next application is John Pierce on Somerset Avenue.
Hello, Board. Mr. Chairman, I'm Mark Cirillo, AutoGate Systems, representing the Pierce Project, 157 Somerset Avenue. So I presented our project last month at the meeting. You have our elevation sketch showing mahogany gates clad over steel frames, painted white Versatex columns. We have inch and a half square pickets, spaced 4 5/8 apart, 60%.
Okay. Any lanterns, lighting on top?
No lighting.
No projected coming from the
No
top?
lighting.
And the height of the pillars are?
We're on there, 6'6".
Highest peak of the gate is approximately?
We're at 6'6", and then we have our ground clearance to clear the curb.
Susan, any questions?
No.
Jeff?
No, not at this point.
Christina?
I'm fine with it.
Any public comment on the application? Please step forward.
Joe Pajak.
Give some room. Give some room for him to speak.
This is payback time.
Hi.
Your name again?
Joe Pajak, architect for the homeowners at 126 Somerset Avenue, couple doors down. They just want to express their support for this application for the driveway gates.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? All right, motion to approve?
I make the motion that we approve the driveway gates for John Pierce on Somerset Avenue.
Motion by Christina, is there a second?
Second the motion.
Second motion by by Susan. All in favor? Susan?
I have a hard time saying yes. Aye. It's unfortunate. Aye.
Jeff?
Yeah, at this point, aye.
Okay, aye by Jeff. Christina?
Aye.
Thank you, board.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Next application, please.
Is Little Plains Southampton LLC.
Oh, did Zach leave? Yes. Is there something in the file about this house?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jeffrey Gibbons, architect for the client.
Okay, no, there's nothing more to say.
The owner. This is an application to, we have already gotten permission from the,
Don't move the microphone.
okay, I'll move my head.
You don't need to.
You don't have to do that.
You can even stand there if you'd like.
Okay.
It's a lot more user-friendly than it's been in the past.
Okay, this is for a house, a new house, where there is an existing house that was built in, I think, 1913. I've had it investigated, and there was no, it was given an okay for demolition.
Is that demo permit in the file?
No, it's, there's a, I don't know, I'm just explaining, when I had another
I hear what
job.
you're saying, but I was confused, because where would that, we might want to see that. There's no demolition, where did the demo permit come from?
I think he filed it already.
Yeah?
And he has a letter from Zach saying that it does not contribute, and it's not an historic.
That's what we're asking.
I'm just looking for the letter or response from Zach. Unfortunately, he's
I
left for the
missed that part.
evening. Therefore, I don't.
Yeah, I think you'll find it, in there, Curtis.
I didn't find it. It's my problem.
I don't have Zach's report in here.
I believe it's in there. I think what Zach said about the house is, despite its age and integrity, it did not meet, but...
Is that...
I have to apologize, because part of this is done by my client, and so I wasn't the one that actually got the approval, so I wasn't the one that gave it in.
Right.
Understood. Proceed with your presentation. I'm going under the assumption, however, I would have some reservation finalizing the application without actually speaking with Zach or having a copy of his report. But let's look at your design and see where we are with your application.
Okay, this is a rather large lot for the area. It's almost an acre. It's 236 feet on Post Lane and 170 feet on Little Plains. It backs up to the small entrance to the cemetery, is to the north of it. There's a neighbor to the west of it on Post Lane. It's on a corner. It's in the R12 district. We have, however, have decided to pull the house back on both the street sides. We pulled it back 40 feet and also on the north side as well to keep it away from the property lines so that, neighbors would not be bothered.
And you now readjusting, how does that tie into the streetscape of the neighboring parcels? Is it in conformity? Is it in
well, like I said, on one side, it's an empty grassy path.
Okay.
Across the street and up and down Little Plains Road, I think there are houses that this would fit with. Let me get you the, here's a picture of the house, the front of the house.
You can set it down. Keep the camera. Yeah.
This is a sample of the shingle that we propose to use. It's pre-stained.
Oh, okay. It's
all the
new.
rage
I know.
now.
And the roof?
Go ahead.
material?
The roof material would be wood.
You would. Same color, same exterior.
Yeah. Well, no, the wood wouldn't be painted. The wood would be natural. Yeah.
And just to recognize, there is a second-story deck, but I believe that yours
It's
impacted so
facing
far
our
from-
backyard, yeah.
Exactly. So I don't have any issue with regards to privacy issues in this situation. Jeff, any comments about the design, the architecture, or?
Yeah, well, when I looked at in the file, this like something we had seen before, that the perspective on the rendering makes it look like, I know it's bigger than some of the lots, but it looks exceptionally grandiose, the lot that is, in that picture. And I'd like to see a more realistic streetscape.
This? Is that what you want?
On Little Plains, you feel that this is out of keeping with homes or specific homes on Little Plains?
I think it's just
very
been-
eclectic and large
Yeah, I know,
variety of
and I
homes.
know, and that street, Post Lane, is also another one that's in transition.
And it's not a gamble, at least.
I think the swooping roof lines, especially coming down to the first story, gives us
Yeah.
smaller impact.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I mean, here it is from an angle point of view from the corner.
I think the entrance to the road.
Maybe Susan can speak to it. This
Yeah, the entrance is,
Is that a little over the top?
I'm not,
A
I don't,
curve.
no, it
Oh, and
seems,
is that a,
It projects out.
yeah, I see that.
and is that a functional deck that's
No.
on top of that?
There's no way anybody could get to it.
Those are all windows behind there?
Yes.
Okay.
The staircase is behind there.
Any other comments, Susan?
I think, well, the entrance is so heavy-handed compared to the thin white lines of the, I personally, of the fenestration, and I'm never a big fan of those black windows with white surround, but, and they're, I don't know, I feel like it has some design problems.
The portico, or how far does that extend? Because I have a feeling it looks larger in the rendering than it actually is.
About 4 to 6 feet.
Which one?
6 feet.
Here's the side view.
Okay.
It's not impacted at all. It's just
Yeah.
very minimal.
Okay. I don't, okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Susan?
I always have a problem with the black windows with the white surround, which I'm having now.
Well, are there
Have you
any,
seen them done, or actually the design when complete, have you seen them?
Yes, well, not these particular ones, because these are elongated. What's the,
I think it accents, it actually looks pretty impressive for most of the homes that I've seen.
that's not me. All right, but
are there
are there
panes?
panes? Is
Yeah,
it
there
panes?
are divided.
But that's,
T at
Is
the
it
top.
four?
the
three
rendering makes it look like it's a solid black.
It's hard to see, yes, because these have been copied several times.
No kidding.
They-
Okay.
They're a rectangle with a bar across the top and a mountain up that way.
And the bottom half is plain, so the mullions are only in the top part of the window?
Right.
Okay.
Most of the windows are probably going to be casement, quite honestly, to meet egress codes, because the double hung windows would have to be so big.
Okay.
Any other comments?
And it's
No.
also for the pool house in the back, that's new. There is a pool house on the property that we're taking down. It's sort of a Japanese-style pagoda thing that...
Really? I went over there, but it was...
In the backyard.
Oh, I wasn't back there too long.
Japanese.
Yeah. It's got a
Kristen, you have
copper roof,
comments
too.
about the design?
Is that an accessible deck in the
No.
front?
I wouldn't dare.
I wouldn't...
I wouldn't dare.
Is there any public comment on the application? My only reservation, as I stated before, is just clarification on the existing structure. Once we say
Right.
yes, once we say move forward, it's gone. And I just don't feel comfortable doing that without at least having some
Right,
information or documentation or something that's in the file.
I asked him
Jeff,
if
you
he put
said
it
you
in
saw
there, and
it?
he said he did.
I thought I did, but if you
I
can't
couldn't
find
find
it in
it.
the file now, maybe it was confused with another.
I'll bring it to the building department tomorrow.
All right, that's my reservation. It seems like overall, in terms of design aesthetics, you have the majority of the board to move, what's that? Oh,
Where was that?
In the file. I just read it.
okay, despite the exception of condition and class. There you go. No issue. So I no longer have any further issue with the application. Board members, is there a motion on the application?
There is when I pick up the file.
That's too bad.
I make a motion that we approve the application of Little Plains Southampton LLC on Little Plains Road.
The motion was by Christina. Is there a second?
What's the date of this thing?
I'll second the application. All in favor? Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
I'm thinking, yes, Jeff.
Jeff?
I'm thinking of saying no.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Go back to,
Aye.
all right, it's all ayes across the board. Thank you.
Although, I think- Here, that needs to be.
Wait, are you
Jeff, so-
using my pen now?
No, you gave me something.
Well, that's mine.
He should have.
Next application, please.
Because it's not in the,
Architectural history.
yeah, very high. It
Guys.
just seems weird to me. Is
Guys,
that,
can we move on?
oh, we're just confused?
Okay.
Sorry.
Next application is GSB Realty on Pheasant Close West, or Cabana. No.
Oh, this is such a tiny thing. Where are these last ones?
Your name for the record, please?
Good evening. Sal Noni, architect.
Okay.
The applicant, GSB Realty East.
All right, you are constructing a accessory pool cabana, correct?
Yes.
Please.
It's a 200-square-foot cabana with a bathroom. It's less than 15 feet high. It's got wood roof. It's got some windows. It's got some siding. It looks really nice.
There you go.
Siding material match the house.
Yes.
There it is. Okay,
Jeff, comments?
I looked at it before, it's fine.
no
Susan?
problem.
Christina?
It's such a tiny little thing on that giant.
Any public
site
comment
plan.
on the application? Then is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the application of GSB East Realty on Pheasant Close West.
Motion is by Christina. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Stevenson. All in favor? Susan?
Aye?
Christina?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you. Next application, please.
Greg Schenker on Cobblefield Lane for a front porch extension.
Where's that?
What about Clea?
We forgot
What
Lee.
happened to Clea?
Leah. You skipped over one.
Don't do that to me.
Okay, very sorry. 145 Lee Avenue.
Lisa Zaloga, I'm the architect for the applicant. I have small sets if you would like them.
This is the
Exactly
pool
same.
house?
Yes.
Board members, did you have the opportunity to review the application?
Yes.
And I'm going to make a suggestion, or maybe at the beginning of the year, that applications such as this, to have a abbreviated review that's necessary to have a full review. It just makes no sense in waiting hours to review something so minimal. But we'll discuss that as part of the process at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
The materials being used match what exists.
They do.
All right. No issues, no concerns of the board. Susan? Jeff?
Nope.
I have an issue that the affidavit of the is not filled out with the name of the person who has the LLC, and it puts me at risk for conflict of interest. I have no idea what I'm dealing with. You put not applicable. I don't consider the application. I'll just abstain.
I don't know. Melissa Dedovich filled out the thing, so I'm not sure what you're speaking of.
Well, that's fine, but we could...
You feel that there's a conflict of interest?
No, I feel that I don't know how to protect myself from a conflict of interest.
I think there's an issue, there's a larger issue, not...
Yeah, it's not you personally.
That we're seeing
not
more...
applicable.
We're seeing more and more applications from LLCs,
Yes.
where there's not even a general partner or managing member that's listed. So therefore, there's no ability to identify who the person is and whether or not there may be potential conflicts. And other communities in New York City in particular is asking LLCs at least to state who their manager is or their principal. So it's an issue we probably
So is the form.
Okay, so this is something procedurally you have a concern
I'm
with?
abstaining.
Let's go on.
I don't want to be exposed.
So that's just, again, another process
I was just trying to
procedurally
explain
we'll
it.
discuss as an agent of the board.
I mean, I didn't know what you were speaking of because I didn't.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's a pool house. Any public comment?
It's not a Russian oligarch.
Nothing further from the board.
Nothing further.
Motion to approve, please.
I make a motion that we approve Clear LLC on Lee Avenue.
It's been a motion by Christina. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor? Christina? Christina's aye. Susan?
I'm abstaining.
Abstained.
And
Jeff?
aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
You too.
Can't do the holiday at the rate things are going. Oh, this is another one of these.
Christina, this goes in the application for... Next application. Captain, what about Captain?
Captain's Neck Lane 2,
That's me.
LLC.
No. Christine, you're good? Yeah, that's it. Captain's Neck.
Where is it?
Right there in front of you. Captain's Neck LLC.
It's the second one.
Right there.
On my life, isn't it? No, that's not the one.
Frank Greenwald, architect, 295 Main Street, Sag Harbor, architect and applicant for Captain's Neck Lane. This is a somewhat straightforward application. I think this is a house that we built several years ago on Captain's Neck. It's a large lot, and what we're proposing is an addition to the house. There's a four-car garage with an artist studio above it. It's a relatively traditional white painted shingle style house. It's sort of difficult to get photos of the house because it's so landscaped, but there are two shots of that end of the house. And basically it's just, so you can see how it's set back 400-something feet from Captain's Neck. It's set back 120 feet, I believe, from the nearest side yard. That's a fairly large property. And it is, you can see here, I think probably the best is this front elevation. You can see it's just sort of borrowing the language of the main house that we did and sort of extruding it out. Basically, the application is take the existing garage, which is attached to the house, turn that into some staff rooms, and then build this additional garage onto the side of the house. Again, it's all painted white, matches what we did in the original house.
Jeff, you have any comments?
No, I don't even think it's visible from the road, and if they want to add on, more power to them.
We're still 4,000 feet below the GFA, max GFA.
Susan?
I don't think it improves the house, but it's so far back. It just meanders longer, but that's okay. But I'm not.
It's set. You don't really ever see this elevation. It's set
No,
back.
it's just the principle of the forever.
I know this was so perfect. But
Well,
Christine,
there you go.
Comments?
No, I have no issue with this.
All right, I have no objection as well. there any public comment on the application? Is there a motion to approve, please?
I make a motion that we approve the application Haskins Neck 2 LLC on Haskins Neck Lane.
I second the
By Christina,
motion.
was second by Susan. All in favor, Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Christina? And aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next application, please.
Stewart and Dixon on Meeting House Lane.
Hello. Hello, it's Jeff Gibbons again. Members of the board, I have some plans and some renderings for you. You should be getting some plans and pictures, renderings in a few minutes. This house, this is another situation where I'm on the preservation committee for the town, so it doesn't do my heart any good to rip down houses in Southampton. But the situation with this couple, they bought the house 15 years ago when they first got married. They now have 4 children in a 3-bedroom house. It's roughly half the size of what we're proposing, and we're under the GFA. It is the first house on Meeting House Lane past the ambulance squad. And you asked a question earlier about street trees. The owner wanted to move the driveway. The house got redesigned like 4 times because we weren't allowed to take the trees down. So the driveway had to stay where it is, this is the view you're going to see from the street. Because right now, there are arborvitaes and hedges completely surrounding this property. Completely. You cannot see even the ambulance building.
What is the age of the existing house?
1899. And I have a letter, I put it in there. This one I know is in there.
No, it's in there as well, which is another issue at some point. One of us should take up with the trustees.
The owner actually is looking into finding property and moving it. I mean, we actually designed a house reusing this house. And the family decided that they needed more space because there's no usable basement in the old house. And they needed more space because they do have 4 children.
Okay. It's in file that the recommendation for allowing the demolition is in file.
We were set to go whichever way Zach said was okay.
Again, Zach gives a recommendation to the board.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the board still has its own discretion to make, we're the voting body, so I just want to make sure the record reflects that he's not a deciding factor.
Okay.
I think in this case, which is the issue we'll take up the board at some time, is I don't even think that house, this house would be able to come to us. They stay within the building department,
Okay.
which is an issue, which is why we have 100-year-old houses being taken
Well,
down.
no, this would have triggered, because of age, this would have triggered a report by Zach or a review by Zach.
It did, but if it doesn't, if it's not in the historic district,
Yes?
and Zach, and it does, and he checks off the other, it's left up to the discretion of the building inspector.
That's correct.
Right, which is why it doesn't come to us all the time, which is problematic.
On this particular one, I believe this is an issue for designation. There's no issue for any design or detail. With regards to what you're proposing as a replacement, it's a typical 4-square with returns above gables.
There's a very simple house there now, and I didn't want to make a very complicated situation.
So you're doing natural cedar roof?
Yes.
The pillars, could you just give me just a little bit of depth in terms of the
They'd be about 8 inches square.
All right, so they're done in
pairs.
In pairs.
And that space in the middle is about a foot, maybe 16 inches. I can't remember right now.
And the brick that you're using for the chimney?
I hate to say it. But what's that one that everybody uses?
Would you like to see the photo?
No, actually, I would like to use a redder brick than that horrible Danish blend that's everywhere in this. It's like become everything. The old houses don't all have Danish blend. They have red bricks. So anyway, I don't know. I'll say Danish blend.
Jeff, any comments?
Yeah, I find the design boxy, and it's maxed out, it fits within the envelope, but it's still boxy. And the juxtaposition of this house, reminiscent of a four-square house, versus the Victorian that's there.
It's not Victorian.
It's somewhat Victorian, okay? It's more vertical. At least give me this. It's more vertical than it is wide.
Yes.
Okay. Your house is more wide than it is vertical. The house next door to it, immediately to the left,
is more vertical.
Is a Victorian.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the one next to that, which used to be Peter Paul Muller's office, goes on for days.
Right. So I have a difficult time, right, wrong, or indifferent, and at this hour, quite honestly, I don't give it a hoot, okay, that I can't support. I wouldn't support the demolition of the house that's there. I can't support what looks to me to be a boxy, wide house on this lot. And please don't, yeah, so anyway, I'm sorry if that offends, but I just can't do it.
Take a look around the
I can't do it in
village.
good conscience.
It's like every other house.
All right, Christine, comments?
Has Zach looked at this?
Yes.
Well, he looked, not at the design.
Not
but-
the new design, no.
Okay.
All those windows are cheap metal windows that have been replaced.
I'm sure there are issues with the existing
That
house.
porch is falling off.
It's not about the quality of the windows. It's really about the design. I find the design boxy. So if you ask me what would get my vote on this for approval, would be a house that had more vertical to it and not as much width.
Okay.
You want to,
I
you're
will
looking for a
comment
higher
on-
house?
No. I think he means longer back and more vertical.
If you could build back
You know why I didn't do that?
across.
I'll tell you
It's
why.
like everything on Lewis Street. And then
No.
it has one-
I'll just tell you. They wanted, with 4 children, as much of a backyard as they could have. So for me to keep going back that way was not where they wanted me to go. The other thing is, I grew up with 4 brothers, and I shared, 3 of us were in a room once, and we lived with 1 bathroom. They have 5 kids. They live in Southampton. They have the means to live in several places. They want a bedroom for each child.
Well, I appreciate that.
And
we can't judge
They adopt
people's...
me.
Well, let me just respond, if I can. Lifestyle is not in our purview. And God knows John has told me plenty of things that are not in our purview, but lifestyle is definitely not it. We can only deal with appearance and architecture. So let me revert back to architecture. In terms of architecture, my wish is that with you and your client, you could build back, and if they have to sacrifice some backyard in order to accommodate living in Southampton and being a part of this community, then that would be a nice and neighborly thing to do. If they don't choose to do it, then I don't have to vote to approve it.
I'll just respond on my comment about this. I've been here long enough to see the evolution of Meeting House, Lewis Street, and these long accordion homes that keeps extending back, which I don't believe was ever supposed to be the vernacular of Southampton Village. It's just, but you're limited based on lot size. The typical 4 square is what's typical in the village of Southampton, and I think this best suits that. Now, with that said, I believe the front, again, gives it that grand look, almost like a 3-story.
Again, that dormer, and there are dormers on other houses on the street.
Don't disagree.
That dormer goes into the foyer. Actually, it's a cathedral ceiling. There's no attic. That was just because the slope of the roof I wanted to maximize for the verticality, and it's 912. So that we have a dormer that is a cathedral area. There's also a skylight on the flat part of the roof that comes through the house, goes through the house, through the staircase.
Okay.
The light comes down. I guess you don't care.
No, we do care. No, well, I do care.
Fine, I guess I didn't know that you didn't want any explanations for why things were done.
I want to respond sensitively, because I know it's late in the evening, emotion starts expanding for various reasons. Every bit of your presentation is important to us to review. The why, the how, and even to the degree of the information you gave with regards to the family who would be occupying it. I don't want to ever say it doesn't make any difference. As a aesthetic board, we're actually asked and required to look at the exterior and the impact. But I never want you to ever believe that your presentation doesn't have merit or that is not important or the details of it is not important. Okay. So yeah, I see that now. You're looking at full true light, and how to mitigate for that. Is you have a dormer with the skylight on top, and it's giving you all the natural light you can possibly get.
You'll have light on the outside, and you'll have light in the middle.
My comments were more critical than they were a problem for me moving forward on the application. More critical, and I only say that is because I've had this application, something similar to this on Meeting House, where we had this elongated 3-story style looking home that has been presented before us. But those other, hear me out, the other applications, the difference between yours and theirs is they not only took and maximized the footprint of the front, but they also extended it back. So now you have this huge mass. You took basically one of the two. You said, am I going to make it long, or am I going to break the presentation street? One of the two, I think, is a better impact than you doing both. And based on what this person could have done on this application, I think this is the best you could do.
It is planned to be further back than it exists now. It's only 5 feet, but it's further back.
And the lot's
and it has a deeper, right. And we have the pool at the way back.
Susan, I don't know if you had a comment. Please speak.
I don't actually have an objection.
You don't have no objection. All right.
Believe it or not.
All right.
Okay.
Well, it seems you have the consensus of the board. Is there any public comment on the application?
No, these guys just want to present.
All right, motion to approve as submitted.
I make a motion that we approve the application of Stewart and Dixon on Meeting House Lane.
I second the motion.
Motion by Christina. It's been seconded by Susan. All in favor. Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Nay.
And I'm an aye. So Jeff is nay. 3 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And when did the letter?
Next application, please.
This is adjourned?
Next application, the applicant has requested by letter that the application be adjourned until our next meeting. The motion would be to approve applicant's request.
Down East Lane?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion that Down East Lane be adjourned, that we accept the request of the applicant to adjourn until our next meeting.
The motion was to approve the applicant's request to adjourn until our next meeting by Christina. Is there a second by Susan?
I second the
It's
motion.
been seconded by Susan. All in favor. Susan?
Aye.
Christina was an aye as well. Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Next and final application.
God. Team development.
35 Downs.
No, that was adjourned.
No, that's Captain's Neck.
Captain's Neck Realty.
Yeah, that's it. Whoops, sorry, close.
Okay.
Didn't do it.
It's too bad about that. But just is.
Oh, this is the prior application. I think you're, okay.
What is that?
Yes.
That's Captain's
This is the
Neck Lane.
prior.
What you have the file, you have this Captain's Neck 2.
That's the old,
It should
that's a
be
different, that
it
was the
was
thing with
on-
the garage or the, we just did it
It's a
two
pretty,
cases
it's a
back.
pretty thick file, and it was on the bottom of the tray.
That was Greenwald. I'll find where that's going.
Yeah, this is the wrong.
That's it?
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
What you're presenting
She's
for?
got it.
Hear me out, please, guys. What you're receiving right now are mimic files, exact files that are currently, we can see if there's been no alterations, but from anything that's currently in our file, correct?
That is correct.
So Christina has the file that
Yeah,
came
but,
from.
I know, but we have now the applicant
Yes, but
proposing.
Antoinette has.
Mr. Chairman, this site plan has been rendered. That's the only difference.
I'm sorry?
The site plan has been rendered, where before it was just black and white. That's all.
Okay,
Ready to go?
present.
It's underneath there, right there.
Not this one.
That's it.
Okay.
So put that in there.
Yes. And then do you guys need the folder?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so let me just get
Okay, let's just move on.
Actually, real cool. They're very, here it is. Very close to me.
It's your fault.
No, it's just over here.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Keene, Keene Development. I am the applicant for 509 Captain's Neck Lane. Joining me tonight is Pat Collins, the lead designer of the project from Keene Designs, Giorgio Citarella, Vice President of Keene Development, John Bennett, local counsel, and Richard Warren from InterScience. We're proposing a classic New England-style shingle home to be built at 509 Captain's Neck. This property is not in the historic district, nor are there any contributing structures on the property. The lot is approximately 9 acres. Actually, it's 9.24 to be exact. This house is very private. We've got 20-foot plus hedges on all 3 sides of the property, and the back side of the property, which is on the water, faces the Shinnecock Preserve. We also have a very large stand of trees in the front of the house that are, I'm going to say, 100-foot plus, beautiful old trees that we are preserving and running the driveway around them in an effort to preserve them, thus giving enormous privacy from Captain's Neck, so you will not be able to see the house. Everything that we are proposing is in full code compliant. We meet or exceed almost all of the requirements. For instance, front yard required is 80 foot. Our proposal is 373 foot, a 465% increase in the requirements. Our side yard, the south side yard requirement is 30. We're doing 90 feet, almost 3 times the setback. North, your requirement is 50. We're doing 112, almost double the setback. Rear yard, 100 foot required. We're doing 378 feet, or a 378% increase. All accessory structures, they're all substantially in excess or meet the necessary setbacks. Height, we have a 35-foot requirement. We meet the 35-foot high requirement. Our accessory structures, 16-foot high requirement. We meet the 16-foot high requirement. Our main house, we're allowed 18,000 feet. We are proposing 17,779.33. I have a letter from the building inspector confirming that everything meets or exceeds the necessary.
We have copies.
You got copies already? Great.
We have copies already.
Since we're on the water, our wetlands, we are required 150-foot setback from the wetlands. We actually have 250.8 feet, 167% more than we need. We are also in the X zone. Yes.
Building?
I know this board has to review each plan on its merits, but I believe given the size of the property, 9.24 acres, the substantial setbacks above and beyond what are required, the substantial shrubs on all 3 sides of the property, the large stand of trees in the front, and the fact that we are 374 feet setback from the road, I believe it is as private as it could get and nobody will actually see the house. We also are substantially less lot coverage than required by the code.
Right, sir.
Let me show you the
What's
front.
the total lot size, I'm sorry?
Lot size is 9.24 acres. So it's a big lot. Interestingly enough, we could actually subdivide the property into 2 lots, or maybe more, 2 lots, let's say, and I guess then the code would allow 36,000 square feet, but we're not looking to do that, obviously. We're here for 1 house. You've got the picture in front of you. I'll put this up for the camera.
like the house. I actually want to see it when it's finished.
Well, it's very reminiscent of a home that that this board approved over in Old Town. Clients saw that. It's very reminiscent of that, similar size and everything. So it's something you've probably all driven by before, and hopefully you like what you see, and I know it's very late, and so...
Well, this is what Southampton's turned, especially specifically in this area, in this community, is 10 acres. No one will see it, however, it's keeping a lot of, think about this, we're keeping a lot of the original vegetation, there's a lot of green space, whereas most people will try to move or hide or add more improvements or decks or spacing. You are keeping a lot of the natural inhabitants. I like the design, I like the house, I have no issues or objections.
Thank you.
Jeff, you have any comments on this application?
I think it's an attractive design and befitting of the property.
Thank you.
Susan?
I have no objection. It's not my, I remember the other house, we just did it, didn't we?
No.
No.
Similarly?
I don't think you were here when that house was done.
No, that was about 7 years ago.
Yes.
No, there's another one we just...
Oh, you just proved one a couple of months ago for us, yeah.
Right.
Different design than this, but
Kind of.
all of our homes have a similar feeling, I
No
think.
kidding. Okay.
Hopefully a good feeling.
Anything further? I'm just waiting for her to finish. So give
I'm
everyone-
not going to say no. It's not my favorite thing, that's all.
Christina?
I'm kind of speechless because I'm overcome by the basketball court.
Because you want to play?
Charles had that.
All right, any public comment on the application? Attractive design, I have no issue. I'm sure the landscape plan would be impeccable. However, even if not, it would be so far back that I don't think anyone will be able to see it.
Thank you.
Therefore, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve
There's a motion by Christina. Was there a comment or you had a question or anything?
What was on the property? Nothing?
No. There's a bunch of,
Last building records are at 69, the big weird addition to it. Not on the Sanborn map, it's a single party house. It's
So is there something that has to be demolished there?
Yes, there's some outbuildings we're knocking down. They're all on the map.
I know they're on the map.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying we've noted all.
Okay, is there a second? There was a motion. Is there
I
a second?
second the motion.
Ms. Stevenson, second is all in favor. Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a good night.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes, Merry Christmas, everybody.
What's left on the agenda this evening are the minutes from November 27th. Every board member was present. Any questions, comments, concerns? Were there changes on the...
minutes.
That it said, no, who's there?
Okay.
Okay.
So all changes, all requested changes have been made, they were received, you have no issues or questions?
No.
Susan, any questions about the minutes?
No.
All right. Motion to approve the minutes from November 27th, 2017.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from November 27th.
Is there a second? It's moved by, motion by Christina, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Stevenson, all in favor. Christina?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Then, motion to close this evening's meeting of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation.
Motion that we close this meeting of the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation on December 11th, 2007.
Motion by Christina, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Ms. Stevenson, all in favor.
Aye.
Christina, Susan?
Susan, aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And Curtis is an aye. Have a good night and have Merry Christmas.
Wait,